Is this gonna work? You can't see anything, it's just me. Alrighty. Do I look have a mess all over my face? Just water. Motherfucker. I don't know, would you say estoy cansado? ¿Cansado? Estoy cansado o... Or would you say... You can hear the ocean, right? It's cars, but you can hear the ocean and the birds singing. Do you say estoy cansado o tengo sueño? Can you say tengo cansado? Estoy con sueño? You don't say estoy sueño, no. It's not that I have dreams right now. It's that I'm very tired. New moon, haven't slept a lot, traveled a lot. I just walked into Manhattan and then did a bunch of shit and then rode a bike back here, loaded with lots of stuff. But I was like, hey, it's 7:30 instead of 6:30. 7:30 in New York. I can do a little video and drink of water. I came in to the house and immediately felt like flushing my sinuses, so the water on my face. I wonder why I would feel like that. Look, this is kind of a nice view. Oh, come on. Are you gonna work? Yeah, see, there you go. It's a sky, it's Manhattan over there. Awesome. Do your pasta making demo, my dear. Nice to see you today. Much love. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I already told him what I was going to talk about today anyway. So yeah, I saw Tony today, and he told me that I'm the first person he spent human time with in like 10 weeks, except like the guy who came to fix his intercom and I don't know, like cash registers. And I didn't ask him to process this right now, but I'm going to ask him when I see him tomorrow. So how does that feel? That's not a relationship that I can, what do you call it? I can't relate to that as a real situation because I've been interacting with people all the time for the last 4 months on a person-to-person human level. So yesterday, when I was traveling, I already mentioned earlier that there was like this tremendous amount of just stress. But you know, traveling is always stressful, but moving from a place where everybody was like naked and chill and whatever on a nude beach, you know, with the waves constantly, into a place where people had like full fucking like plastic masks in front of their face, like sneeze shields, and a mask underneath, and fucking gloves on. Whatever, people need to do what they need to do to feel safe. I have always said that safety is implicit and it's an illusion because life isn't safe. It is definitely dangerous. No matter what the fuck you do, it's gonna kill you. One of my favorite quotes by Neil Gaiman is, life is a sexually transmitted disease that is 100% fatal. All the time. Every single case of it is gonna kill you. That's a long extrapolation of it, but it's a great contextualization of life. It's a sexually transmitted disease, and it's 100% fatal. So life isn't safe. I've always, I live a different life than the average person, and I think a lot of people are motivated by the idea of safety, and like, although a lot of people like fantasizing me as being somebody who's just like lighthearted and free and fun and happy-go-lucky, I'm not. And although I've become much more loving and friendly and chill and relaxed as an adult than I was when I was a kid. But what motivated me to become a traveler was that I wanted to fucking die more than anything, and thought that I wasn't allowed to kill myself. So I was like, if I just put myself in the worst danger possible, life will kill me and I will be out of here and I don't have to be here anymore. However, what happened was I found that the world was filled with kind, wonderful, loving people. All that being said, life is not safe. And I think at least that's part of the deal that I have accepted, is that life is dangerous. And these guys that I was teaching Qigong to in Mexico, one of them was 24. He turned 25 while I was there. And the other one was 33. And especially the 24-year-old talked about how he always had cuts on his fingers and like skinned knees. Like he ripped a whole bunch of skin off of his knee. And we talked about, and I said, yeah, when I was younger, I always had some kind of cut or wound on my body somewhere. And I felt like if I didn't, I wasn't living life properly. Not like I did it on purpose, but like I just lived kind of intensely, like, climbing trees and rolling over shit. And as an adult, I don't have wounds on my body as much. And I don't think that's because I've learned to be more graceful. I've just learned to be less dangerous. I don't know what you want to say. I learned to be less self-destructive. I don't get high as much from being so self-destructive in the way that I did when I was younger. All of that being triggered by the comment that people do what they need to do to feel safe. And a lot of it logistically doesn't make any sense to me. But this is about, I was traveling yesterday. I'm seeing all these people doing what I kind of think is insane, but at the same time feeling like a huge compassionate resonance of these people are terrified and they're trying to feel safe. Some of us are being terrified and trying to feel safe. Some of us are trying to make the people who are terrified feel less scared. And so we're just like putting masks on to be like, look, you don't have to be afraid around me. It's fine. I won't kill you if I don't know if I have disease or not. It's just cool. So there's different motivations, and then there's a whole bunch of... I was talking to Tony, and I was like, we would call them douchebags nowadays. And he was like, no, he was a guy, so you'd call him a scumbag. A scumbag. Girls you'd call a douchebag, but guys you call scumbags. And I was like, nowadays people just call everybody douchebags. I'm in New York now, Ziggy. Listen, Ziggy, I'm in New York now, so I know... I took a picture today of no mask, no entry in a store that I went into to shop. You can't. The benefit, Ziggy, about you can't go into a lot of restaurants now. You can go into grocery stores, obviously. You can go into pharmacies, I guess. You can go inside of them and you have to wear a mask. But like there are restaurants that you can't go inside of and they just have a cash register like right up against the door, right? You've seen those. So the benefit about that, hi Jorge, is that you can walk up with your shirt off because it was sunny and warm today when I was out. So I had my shirt off and I was like, I've been able to shop and all sorts of shit in Mexico without shirt or shoes or pants. I was just wearing a sarong. But I was like, I'm in New York and I don't need to wear a shirt because I'm not going into the shop. So I don't need to wear a shirt. And these people just kind of looked at me. I had a mask on, but I didn't have a shirt on. So I was like, hey, Jorge. So I thought that was kind of a nice bonus. I can wear my mask, but I don't have to wear a shirt, and you still can sell me shit. But yeah, when I went into the shop, I had a shirt on. It's fucking cold again, and I'm outside because there's birds singing, and it's nicer out here. I wish I could sing. I'll sing in a minute, maybe if I've calmed down. Long-winded, distracted, Dominic, blah, 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 Gemini. All I'm trying to say is I go into the airports. I've been in 3 airports and there's like people with masks and sneeze guards and gloves. And I'm like feeling the resonant fear, ambient swimming pool that I'm in with everybody. And it was really stressful. It It was like when I first walked into the airport, I was like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And I just felt like all of my muscles starting to tighten up. And this just kind of like, I was like, whoa. And I used to make necklaces that I believed had like magical powers. And I travel with one, even though I don't ever wear it, because I just don't feel like I need that kind of magic anymore, you know? And standing in the airport, like in a line of people filling out like health fear questionnaires. And I was just like, you know, that magic necklace that I don't really feel like I need anymore and I don't believe in, or I don't believe in those kind of even paradigm right now. And I haven't used it in years, but I travel with it. I think now is the right situation to put it on. And it was. It's like as soon as I put it on, it like creates this kind of energetic aura field of like just safety, organization. It's more like protection and organization. So it organizes the energy around me and kind of grounds and organizes and kind of blocks a little bit. So that helped. But still, yeah, maybe I could send you links, or I can send you a prescription you can make your own. It'd be much better if you make your own. Much better if you make your own. And I could do a class about that. I'm gonna do a class. Anyway, so airport, and then like stress of like might miss the plane, so like had to reschedule and catch another plane, and then get that sounds fun. Yeah, that's one of the kind of things right now is that like everybody can be a hoodlum, everybody can be like a thief, not a thief, like a bank robber. We can all look like bank robbers, like. And I love that like Apple's like awesome face recognition technology just is totally doesn't work because of these masks. Like you just, oh, sorry. Although somebody told me that they may have retooled the algorithm, so it's just reading your eyes now, so that you can have the mask on and it'll still unlock your phone. I have to update my operating system and see if that works. All this being said, I get to New York City. And I'm like sussing out the energy field here, like Mexico to New York City. Like Cancun was kind of terrifying, again, because it's all like, look, it's a party. It's for all the tourists around the world who want to come here and party and drink. And it's totally empty. And like everything's closed. So that felt kind of like, oh. But then I get to New York and I'm like, oh. I walk outside and I feel drunk and spirally. And also because I'd been crying for like an hour. Because I watched a movie that made me cry a lot. And it's like a fantasy cop movie. It's called Bright on Netflix, and it made me cry a lot. So I'm just sensitive, and it triggered a bunch of stuff. Shopping dressed as sharks. Well, I was trying to explain to these kids in Zippolit, the place I was in Mexico, and they didn't even get what I was trying to talk about. Was that there's a company from Utah that makes masks called cock-blocking masks. And the patterns they have all over them are penises, vaginas, or breasts. And so you can get these like masks that have penises, vaginas, or masks, or cunts, or vaginas, breasts, penises, but they're small. So the idea is that if somebody walks up to you and says, oh my God, are those penises all over your mask? Then the correct response is, and you're too fucking close to be able to see that clearly, so fuck off. Get 6 feet away. Like everybody has these different, people tell me these stories of people going with like swimming noodles coming out of their heads to try to keep social distancing. I do think the positive aspect about this is it allows people to live their crazy a little bit broader, because everybody's kind of crazy already. But in this environment where everybody's like pressure cooker crazy, everybody's like crazier, like the crazy's turned up. I mean, I keep saying like reality's been crazy for a really long time, probably forever. And it's like just been shot up a notch, like exponential crazy going on right now. So it is fun that people are going shopping as sharks or dinosaurs or cowboys or bank robbers. But fuck, I'm never going to finish getting to the point. Maybe it's not about getting to the point. It's about the journey. So I get to New York. I'm drunk and I'm spirally, and I'm like out, and I'm like, there's some dude standing out like smoking a cigarette, and he has like a mask dangling from his ear, and I'm like, all the signs are pointing this way to the bus, but is the Q10 bus this way? And he's like, nah, it's that way. You used to walk on this sidewalk, just keep going all the way and take a right at the light. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why are all the bus signs saying go this way, but the Q10's that way? And for those of you who don't know, either if you're New Yorkers and you don't know this, or if you're not a New Yorker, New York installed this thing called the air train, which is really cool. You can go from the airport on a train to the subway, to different subway lines. But the air train costs $5. The subway costs $2.75. The Q10 bus is what savvy New Yorkers used to take to get to the airport from the subway. And the subway with MetroCards, you have a free transfer. So if you take the subway to the Q10 bus to the airport, it's a free transfer. You don't have to pay another $5 to do the air train. So for some of us cheap, savvy New Yorkers, I mean, it takes about the same amount of time, Craig. It takes about the same amount of time as the air train, but it's a free transfer. So like, why pay an extra $5? So obviously there's like a propaganda thing to be like, no, everybody go walk this way to the buses over here that you have to pay for, where you could go this way and get to the Q10, the B15 and maybe the Q3 and the B15. I don't know where those go. I've never taken them. Actually, I looked at the route for the B15. I was like, maybe that'll take me where I need to go. But it goes to like Bed-Stuy or something, which is good for the Bed-Stuyians, but not for the Carroll Garden Red Hookian that I am right now. So I get on the Q10, and you can't pay on the buses right now. There's just a big fucking like plastic sheet with a sign with like chains over it that says stay safe, stay at home, buses for essential travel only right now. So the buses are free. Don't fucking ride the buses, stay home. That's what the sign is basically saying. The bus is free. Stay fucking home and don't ride the bus. So I'm on the bus, and it takes me to the train, and I get on the train, and I get off at J Street Borough Hall and take another bus. And it also has the same situation. Don't fucking pay. Stay away from the driver. You have to get on in the middle of the bus. It's free. Fuck off. In a friendly way. Stay safe. Stay home. Don't ride the bus. Don't go out. Don't interact with people. I get to the house here, and as you notice, some of you who tuned in, before I get to the bus here, I'm kind of crying and freaking out a little on the street. I'm just like, I'm in New York. Hi, New York. And I go and I get Mexican food, California Mexican food. But you can ride then, Jorge says. Yeah, you can ride for free. You can ride for free. It's just there's a sign that says don't stay home. It says the sign, you can ride it. Yeah, yes, Jorge's positive. You can ride the buses for free. It's great. It's for essential travel only. Don't. But anyway, it's very friendly in a kind of like wall of keep away from the driver kind of way. It's very nice. Anyway, social distancing on the bus. Hi, guys. And I wait for the food. There are subtleties, Jorge says. You can be like, Dominic, you don't have to be freaked out. It's cool. So I get my food from Calexico. I talked to the people at Calexico, and this was actually really inspiring to me because they're like, yeah, we reopened yesterday, but even though we were closed, we were supplying food for food banks, and we applied for they used some letters that means some kind of loan. And I said, oh, so you have to pay it back. They're like, no, we don't have to pay it back. And I was like, oh, then it's not exactly a loan. But they've been delivering for people. And then all of the food that they used to have to throw away legally, they're able now to give to food banks and give to first responders and give to homeless shelters and all this shit. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And they're like, yeah, that's what we've been doing. And she said, we've actually done better financially than what we projected. So we're trying to pay off our debts ahead of time. I don't know. So it made me, it sounded like really positive that they were trying to do good things. And I said, where did you get your masks? And they had these kind of cute masks on. They weren't like awesome couture fashion masks, which of course I want, awesome New York couture fashion mask. But they said, yeah, we got them from the laundrette down the street. They take up old clothes that people haven't come and picked up, and they cut them up and make masks. And I'm like, that's fucking awesome. Jorge, have you done that? Have you gone to a laundrette and gotten a mask? Has any other New Yorker done that? I thought that was really cool. It's something I'm definitely going to do, but not tomorrow on Memorial Day, but Tuesday I will. So I get back to the house. I start eating the food, and I start I think I get into the house, I take off my stuff and put it on the floor right by the door and start unpacking things that I'm going to need and use. Maybe I washed my hands first and then started unpacking things that I was going to need and use. And then I washed my hands again and I was like, oh, great. And I took off all my clothes and threw it in the washing machine and took a shower. Maybe I did all that before I ate. I think I did all of that before I ate. And then I'm standing there naked and I'm eating and I'm trying to figure out how to get my phone to project stuff onto the TV. They don't have a TV, they have a projector. And I'm messaging with Mike, who owns the house. He's the co-owner of the house that I'm staying in, which I guess gets to that. So Mike, I've known for like 12 years or something. I met him in 2007 or 2008, and I've been leading him in naked yoga and a whole bunch of group people for the last 12 years. And when I'm here now, because I've given up residency, and this house I've been in a lot. It's definitely like a second home to me in New York. I've spent a lot of time here. And I don't know, it was like I'm fiddling with the technology after I'd showered, after I'd washed, after I'd unpacked everything. And I'm like eating while trying to figure out something and moving around the space in this very New York way, I kind of think. And then all of a sudden I notice that I feel safe. And I'm like, whoa. It was a totally different feeling than what I felt in Mexico, and definitely a totally different feeling than what I felt for the last few days of travel. I just stopped my tracks and I was like, there's this whole level of stress that's gone. There's this whole level of stillness, even though I was kind of moving around the house in a somewhat like trying to do multiple things at the same time. And I just stopped and I appreciated it. And I was like, I feel really safe here. Like I feel at home or just like grounded. And I was just like, oh, that's so nice. And that's something that I've really, really been doing like as a spiritual practice the last couple of years, is taking time to appreciate the things that feel good, taking time to appreciate the goodness of your life. Like the phrase that one of the teachers used at one of the meditation retreats I was on was, appreciate the goodness of your life. Like receive the goodness of your life. That you have all of this wonderful goodness in your life and you usually deny it, ignore it, like even put it to the side because you're too obsessed with the neurotic shit that's like, but that thing's out of place, or how am I going to pay my rent, or what if this food isn't organic, or whatever your whatever your damage is, man. That's fine. It's fine to have damage. We all have damage. No problem. But it is a problem. It's not a problem. It's not a problem to have problems. It's fine. But to actually take time and be like, I have a lot of good shit going on. I have such pretty eyebrows. I love my big fluffy, like I'm getting mature and I'm getting big eyebrows. I love that. I have a house that I feel safe in, that people who love me, there are people who love me and they said, you can come and stay in my house. They're up at their country house, but they're like, you can come and stay at my house. You can feel safe at my house. We love you. We want you to feel safe. We will do whatever we can for you to feel okay. And like, that's such a wonderful thing to appreciate, right? The world, life isn't safe, but there's so many kind, lovely, wonderful people. The world's dangerous. It's totally worth being in danger because that's what makes life delicious. Skinning your knees, climbing trees, clambering over rocks is dangerous. Eating food is dangerous. Drinking water in third world, I hate that word, sorry. Drinking water in countries that you don't have a biological microbiome that's happy with those kind of systems, or just dirty water, that's dangerous, but it's so worth it. Climbing through a forest where there's ticks and poison ivy, it's dangerous, but it's worth it. It's worth it to enjoy the beauty of life, but only if you take time to appreciate the beauty of life. It's only worth. I know I mentioned this in one of my other talks, but there was a dude that I met in Mexico who spends a couple seasons every year working in national parks, and he said that he has been in incredibly far, deep areas in national parks many times. There was one place he was talking about in Maui that people had to drive on like a terrifying switchbacky, like 2 hours shitty, horrible stress road to get to this amazing place. And he said like the majority of people would get there, get out of their car, spend like 10 minutes taking a picture, making a fucking video, and then get back in their car and drive back. Like, there's millions of visitors to the South Rim main viewing place of the Grand Canyon every year. Millions of visitors. The average amount of time of every visitor to that park, so every visitor of the millions and millions of visitors, the average amount of time spent at the Grand Canyon is 15 minutes. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? It's just a statistical example of how people don't appreciate the goodness of their life. You go through, like, life is dangerous. It's gonna kill you. So at least fucking appreciate how beautiful it is, how kind people are who love you, how just like the birds are singing and the air is fresh. So Owen Pallett came out with this new album a couple of days ago. It's called Island. We're all on fucking islands right now. We're all fucking islands. The Buddha was like, be an island. You don't need anyone. You don't need anything. Be an island. Owen Pallett is... he's one of those people like Thom Yorke, for those of you who are music nerds, prophets of the type of, one of the prophets of cultures that I appreciate most, music. Owen Pallett's like Thom Yorke, one of those people that I'm so glad to be alive in the time that they're alive. I feel like that my soul resonates with their soul. I feel like so often they write about things that I'm just like, yes, for me at least. My version of reality. I'm very different than both of these people, obviously, but they sing, they resonate a part of the existence I'm living in. And Owen Pallett, I don't know, like a decade ago, maybe a little bit more than a decade ago, he wrote an album called Heartland. It was the first album he released under his own name, and he didn't do an interview about it for 2 years. But like, you know, why do people need to do interviews about albums? Talk about shit. Now, when I got to like learn about Owen Pallett, he'd first called himself Final Fantasy, which is the name of an RPG video game, and he wrote like this amazing song about being obsessed with characters in books and video games. On this album called He Poos Clouds, and that sounds like the most ridiculous title of anything. He Poos Clouds. What the fuck is He Poos Clouds? He Poos Clouds, later he revealed, was a concept album based on the Dungeons and Dragons magic systems from, like, I've never really played Dungeons and Dragons very much, so it was like Dungeons and Dragons version 4, system 4, whatever the fuck it's called. They had a magic system that had 8 branches of magic. Like, you could be a conjurer, you could be a healer, you could be I don't know what all the magic systems were. But you could have defense magic. I remember there's a defense magic, there's a conjuring magic, there's a clairvoyance magic. Anyway, he wrote this album that was called He Poos Clouds that was about the 8 different magic systems of System 4 Dungeons & Dragons, if I remember correctly. And I fell in love with a couple songs from the album, the title being one of them, and This Lamb Sells Condos, about a real estate development, which is the conjuring magic. A real estate development guy in Toronto who he thought was destroying Toronto, as a lot of people thought was destroying Toronto. No hope for the village, no hope for the village. So that's why you might be interested in, like, what's this Heartland album about. He refused to do an interview about it for 2 years, and then when he finally did an interview, he admitted, he was like, okay, so yeah, Brad Lamb, yeah, you know who I'm talking about, Mr. Toronto. yeah, so you should listen to that album because the song, like, anyway, it's a great song. Cute music video too. God, okay. So Heartland, when he did an interview, he said, when I write songs, I often imagine that they're taking place in an alternate reality because I made them up. So they're taking place in an alternate reality in my fantasy world. And that alternate reality is called Spectrum. And there was an EP called Spectrum 14th Century that had this song called The Butcher. And The Butcher was about the god of Spectrum, whose name is Owen, because Owen wrote about it. So it's him. He's the god because he made it up. The Butcher is about how you can be a god and people can pray to you and do all sorts of things. And the god can do whatever the fuck he wants because he's a god. It's his reality. He made it up. He can do whatever he wants. And it wasn't necessarily very kind. He called himself the Butcher. But Heartland was an album about how the god, Owen, became obsessed with one of the characters living in Spectrum, who was a farmer named Lewis. My brother's name is Lewis. And when I listened to this album before reading about the concept behind this album, one of the best songs on the album is called Lewis Takes Off His Shirt. And the refrain is, I'm never going to give it to you. And I'm like, what the fuck is this song about? It's so good. What the fuck is this about? Who is Lewis? And so when he did the interview, he's like, so most of the songs that I write take place in Spectrum because I write them. And I'm God in Spectrum. And the whole album of Heartland is a concept album where it starts with Lewis realizing that God, Owen, is paying attention to him. So he leaves his farm, he leaves his wife, he leaves his kids, and he starts traveling around kind of being an evangelical, like telling people, Owen's paying attention to me. Owen is watching me. And everybody's like, what? Like, everybody knows in Spectrum that God's name is Owen because they live in Spectrum. And Lewis eventually gets really bitter because Owen's just a faggot from Toronto who's sexually fetishizing this farmer who's not gay, and he doesn't want to be sexually fetishized by this faggot from Toronto. And so he ends up eventually getting really bitter and climbing to the highest mountain in Spectrum and killing God. It's a nice song. It's called A Tryst with Mephistopheles. It's a great song. But the song right after it is called What's Going to Happen Next? Because what the fuck happens when you live in a reality and then you killed God? So the next album Owen did was called In Conflict, and it was looking at struggles people are having in life. And a couple of the songs took place in Spectrum. You could tell. So this new album that just came out 2 days ago, he finished right after he did In Conflict, which In Conflict was probably 5 years after Heartland. So it was like, that was a long wait period. And he wrote and recorded Island, which is the follow-up to Heartland, like right after he finished In Conflict. So it was done in 2016. And he wanted to I remember him writing on Facebook or somewhere, or Instagram, that he wanted to do, he said, the whole entire album's recorded and mastered. I just need to record strings for something. And mostly he composes everything on a violin, and he does strings for lots of movie soundtracks, lots of different pop bands, Arcade Fire, and tons of different people he does strings for. So he's a very busy musician besides his own project. But it just kept getting put off, and he was like, I'm going to release it this year. I'm going to release it next year. I'm going to release it next year. He was done with it in fucking 2016. He released all the lyrics for it in 2017. But what the fuck are lyrics without music? They're nice, whatever, but you can't, and so I had all the lyrics saved in my phone from the 2017 when he released all the lyrics for the album. And he just fucking released the album 2 days ago, and a lot of it's the zeitgeist of what's going on right now. Or at least it feels that way because I'm living right now and I'm just hearing the music right now. And, but I guess what happened to Lewis, I suppose, after he killed Owen was he became a drug addict or a drunk and got lost at sea and got washed up on an island somewhere. Although must have been a lot of islands in Spectrum, because there's reference to how many islands will surrender to the blunderbuss, or how many islands will fall to the blunderbuss. And how long will it take before God shows his face to us? There's a lyric from Heartland that I think is amazing, like, talking, what's it good for? Absolutely nothing, ... I will fill up the silence with the sound of your holy name. Owen, no, he doesn't say Owen, but oh, I don't know if he's meaning to say Owen, but just that, like, what do you do with your time? What do you do to take up the time of your life? If you look at the history of humanity, most of it's people filling up the silence with the sound of holy names, of writing music, Christian music, painting, scenes from the fucking Bible, constantly doing God's tonkas. Like one of my friends picked up an object in his house today and was just like, somebody took time to craft this. I'm like, that's all people do with most of their life, is just like carving out scenes from fucking holy stories, up until we became a godless atheist culture, which is fine. But I mean, it's just, you need to have some kind of meaning in your life. So it's interesting that this guy who is, I don't know if Owen's an atheist, probably, because he's his own God in his own creative life, and he's writing about this character who killed God. And, Lewis washes up on an island, and people are singing about, this is the God killer. The God killer actually is here. The God killer's alive. The myths of the guy who killed Owen is here. This is the real Lewis. And Lewis is like a drunk. He's an addict or whatever. And then he gets kind of cleaned up. And I haven't sussed out the whole story yet. However, there's a song that has made me cry almost every time I've heard it so far. And the album's been out 3 days. And I just started to cry thinking about when I was preaching, as it were, about people just fucking take the time to appreciate the goodness of your life. What do you mean, Joseph? Anime, fantasy, Disney characters, like people who made it, like that guy who made a Disney character of me. That's a whole other conversation. I love on Twitter that people I used to be kind of freaked out by furries, but at this point, I think furries are so fascinating because there's tons of them who draw like oodles and oodles and oodles and oodles and oodles of like avatars of themselves as like fox, cat, mutant, sex monster dudes, just like being friendly or being fat or being sexy, like these bara furry characters, but that they spend so much time being their own god, recreating themselves over and over and over and over again in these, because the world is secular. Oh, and so the Disney characters are the gods nowadays. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Because the world's secular. Because there's no meaning to anything. It's totally arbitrary. I can't understand why there's so many suicides and depression. Why? So anyway, this song is called Fire-Mare. So any of you have Spotify or pay for Apple Music or any of those things, Deezer, whatever the fuck Deezer is, or you can buy it on Bandcamp. It's called Island by Owen Pallett, and this song specifically is that's me under the FX makeup. Yes, that's you. Who are you? Are you Lewis, or are you God, or are you David Bowie? Fire-Mare, like a female horse, which I'm sure has some Dungeons and Dragons or RPG reference about like some creature you can conjure that's super powerful. But the song, and I don't have it all in my head yet. But the opening of the song is I never learned how to hate. I never learned how to be hated. I never learned how to hate. I never learned how to be hated. How long does it take? Just think of the ability to, how painful it is to hate and to be hated and not knowing how to do it. And there's this kind of climax right before the climax of the song. The stanza is, Owen, are you there? Oh, I wish you would end this nightmare. and put your arms around something and put your arms around me and meet me on the same platform. Oh, Owen, are you there? I wish you could end this nightmare that I am in. And then it's something about like, oh, I really wish you could do this. And that we could be angels instead of having to live through this bullshit. And it makes me cry every fucking time I hear it. And I will burn away this hatred. And I will burn this hate within me. Oh, Owen, are you there? I wish you could end this nightmare. I wish you could put your arms around me. The album has a lot of references to wanting to be held by God. So again, like this Lewis character who is so angry about God loving him in this fetishistic way, like, oh, you're a sexy farmer. Self-loathing complications here, projections, reiterations, the character, the creator, amazing. This idea that we should be angels instead of having to live through this bullshit. If this is our consensual reality, why the fuck did we all choose this again? But I felt the same thing around September 11th. Like when September 11th happened, there was this movie that was really popular, like the years leading up to it. Like maybe it came out 2 years before it happened or something. And it featured the White House being blown up by aliens, right? And I was like, that's what everybody wants. Everybody loves this story of like eternal constant war. People love this story. It's like this, it reiterated over and over and over. And of course, like they wanted to see some gigantic, powerful, symbolic building destroyed. That's such a fucking, that really turns people on. It feels fucking great. Wow, fear, anger. Just like righteous, justified, crazy anger. Humans love that shit. And when this fucking pandemic thing exploded a couple of months ago, I did some research online to like try to find how many, Jorge's like, how many like big blockbuster stories, novels, books, TV shows were about pandemics, about these things. And like there was a list of like the 56 best movies based on, viral epidemics. And I was like, 56 best movies? Fuck you, humanity. And I mentioned it to somebody and they're like, it's in the Bible. It's the plagues. And I was like, oh, right. Yeah. Plagues happen all the time. And of course, people like the story because it happens all the time. So we make it happen all the time, but it has happened to us all the time. So it's something we expect. It's like one of those abused lovers situations. Like, well, he only hits me because he loves me. I mean, he hit me and it felt like a kiss. I mean, well, if he loved me, he would hit me. If he loved me, he'd get jealous because I looked at the other man. And if he doesn't get jealous, then he doesn't love me. Like, people feel like they need to be punished all the time. So yeah, it'd be really great if we had a viral pandemic. That would be awesome. Maybe we could all agree to make that happen. Yes, this is fucking great. Love it. So that couldn't we be angels instead of having to live through this bullshit? Couldn't we be prancing in the Garden of Eden? But, I was just I wasn't exactly in the Garden of Eden, but I was on a nude beach where there was pretty good fruit. But there was some, well, there will always be more pandemic movies. I've seen a lot of writers post on Facebook over the last 2 months. I don't want to see any of the writing that comes out of this era. I don't want to see any of the movies or the TV shows or the writing that was inspired by this. Fuck that. Anyway, yeah, so you should listen to Island by Owen Pallett, and you should send him messages and tell him you love him because he suffers greatly and he's a genius and he's lovely. He's Owen Pallett on Facebook, and he posts clouds on Instagram. He posts clouds, not he poos clouds. On his first album, which used to be called Final Fantasy Has a Good Home, but now it's called Owen Pallett Has a Good Home. One of the best songs off of it was I Can't Wait Till You Unsubscribe. So like at the beginning of his career, he's like, don't fucking obsess over me. I can't wait till you unsubscribe. Eternity is boring. I think this is how we understand ourselves, the universe. Wouldn't you get tired of prancing after 100 years? Okay, Ziggy, talking about that, like the Hindus, which believe that, I love this view of eternity, that the true nature of everything is perfect, all-knowing bliss, happiness, omniscience, and oneness, and like wholeness. And that's not boring, it's great. But eventually, like, you want to have a different experience. So what that version of reality does, which they call Brahman, they call that version of reality Brahman, and he eventually tricks himself into believing he's a god, which they just call Ishvara, which kind of means the overlord. But there's a word for Brahman pretending to be Ishvara, which is called Leela, like a girl's name, like Leela. And Leela is the name for the divine play where whole oneness and eternity pretends it is a conscious being. But Ishvara gets bored being the only thing. Jorge is living to be 170, by the way, because like he's gonna prance longer than 100 years, Jorge Clark. But Jorge's already been prancing for time unspeakable, so he's a good example. And then Ishvara, after getting kind of bored of being the overlord by himself, starts creating all the other gods, and we can say the main triumvirate of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva in that order are the gods that created all the other gods that we know. But chances are Brahma also created lots of other gods that created lots of other realms. But in this realm, and all that we can know, it was created by Brahma. So Brahman is Satchidananda everything. Ishvara is the Leela of Brahman. And then he created Brahma, which is the creator, Vishnu, which is the maintainer, and Shiva, which is the destroyer. But in order to make things happen, you have to destroy things all the time. So Shiva's destroying everything. So a lot of people think Shiva just makes everything. A lot of people think Vishnu makes everything. There's not a huge cult around Brahma, who is the creator. So that's weird to me. Anyway, a lot more people I think most people worship the maintainer. Vishnu is Krishna and Vishnu is Rama. Vishnu manifests a lot as humans. He generates over and over and over as humans, and a lot of them are famous, like Rama and Krishna. Those are the only famous ones that I know off the top of my head. But Indians who worship Brahma could tell you, who worship Vishnu could tell you a lot more of them. Almost everything in Angkor Wat was worshipping Vishnu. Shiva, there's tons of people who worship Shiva. I don't know. I know you can say Krishna, Krishna, Hare, Hare Krishna. I've never been a Hare Krishna. But I know that you can say Om Namah Shivaya, which means everything is Shiva. Everything is Shiva. But anyway, the point that I'm making is that Hindus believe that everything's it's a joke, it's a play, it's bullshit, it's a lie, that there's anything besides wholeness. But wholeness made a god, the god made other gods, those gods made other gods, which made other gods, which made other gods, which are the world and the water and the electricity and the light and then there's all these people that were made out of them, made out of other things. And the people all believe that they're separate so that we can have fun, so that we can suffer, so that we can prance, so that we can fuck and eat and fight and taste ice cream. And Owen, are you there? How I wish you could end this nightmare that I am in and wrap your arms around me. Wow, look at that sunset, baby. Let me just shut up for a second. And then to make it even more complicated and interesting, Ziggy, they have these things called the yugas, which they have a map of time that is totally fucking crazy. When you get into the Hindu breakdown of reality, they measure time in something like billions of years, and something like the last 500 million years, we've been in this thing called the Kali Yuga, which is made out of iron, and it's rusty and shitty, and everything is about suffering and misery. And of course, not everything's about suffering and misery, because there are pockets for people who don't want to participate in the suffering and misery. But the consensus reality is, hey, let's have 500 million years of suffering and misery. That would be awesome. Let's be dinosaurs and rip each other to fucking shreds. Hey, let's be humans and make like factory farmings to like torture ourselves as cows and then rip them up and like have, you know, blah, 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 blah. And slaves, yeah, and war, yeah. So I'm in New York City, Joseph. This is Brooklyn, baby. We live in Brooklyn, baby. We live in Brooklyn. That's the fucking World Trade Center. That's Manhattan. Ba-doop. Or he's like, I don't want to be in the Kali Yuga. Obviously you do, kid, because you're here. But we're in the Kali Yuga, and it's what's nice about the Kali Yuga, because like Ziggy's like, wouldn't you get bored of prancing after 100 years? Try 100 million years. People prance in the other yugs, which I don't remember the names of the other yugs, but they're like, some of them's like 1.5 million years. There's a map. Maybe I'll post it, because I know I have copies of it. You can, they've broken down the time into all these different things of like when the gods die and regenerate, and when the versions of humans regenerate, when the life form avatar vessels, because really that's the better way of thinking of it. Humans are just a life avatar vessel. One of the ways that you can truly look at how humans function is there is life. And life is a bird and a plant and a person and all the other things that are alive. And these are all just different experience vessels. All of these things are experience vessels that these things can experience reality like by drinking things and eating things and fucking and fighting and listening to music and birds and listening. We have senses, and we can navigate with our feet and our arms, and we can swim, and we can breathe, and we can see and hear only within a narrow range, but it's pretty cool. But you can also be a fish at the bottom of the sea, and you can also be a cow, or you know. I am actually down by the water. I'm in a neighborhood that's not really a neighborhood. It's sometimes called the Columbia Waterfront District. It's kind of between Carroll Gardens and Red Hook. So yeah, I'm not terribly far from Clinton, Washington. Lucre. That's kind of a funny spelling of Lucre. Anyway, yeah. Yes, Ziggy. It does get boring for everything to be pleasant all the time. But right now, we're in the Kali Yuga where it's more fun to suffer and have things be shitty. So that's why things tend to do this. And we're just like in a really, it just like seems like it's getting shittier and shittier and shittier. But if we look at history, there's been atomic bombs and slavery and Black Death over and over and over, and cholera. So, I mean, this is just par for the course. It's the same shit over and over and over and over. It's not really like that bad. And as I've pointed this out to many people, or you could be the Q Star Trek reference. I don't speak Star Trek very well. I've never really worshipped at that altar. I think it's cool, but you know, I think Brett Spinner's awesome, and Jean-Luc Picard, what's his name? Patrick Stewart. Love Patrick Stewart. Love Brett Spinner. I even love William Shatner, even though he's a dork. And that's one of the things I love about him. Like, he's such a dork, and he's sexy. I totally do William Shatner at the age he is now, and 10 years ago. Not when he was younger. Star Trek. Q in Star Trek is a Hindu. Okay, cool. There are kids that are living up on the 3rd floor, and I really just wish they'd open the windows and talk to me out here. That would be socially distant. I want them to feel safe. I haven't talked to them since I've been here. Q looks at eternity. Yeah, somebody told me there's some other race and some other sci-fi thing that is just eternal. Wait, is Q a specific race? No, there's some other story that's happening right now. Maybe it's another Star Trek franchise where there's a being that exists at all points. Or maybe that is Q. Does he exist at all points in time at the same time? Is that Star Trek, or is that something else? I don't know. There's some sci-fi thing where there's some being who exists at all points in time at the same time. which is cool. Generations. That's from Generations. Okay. Yeah, I never watched that. Anyway, what was I talking about? I was talking about safety and danger and how I'm in a house and I feel safe. And I've been very passionate and emotionally melty and explodey. Sorry about that. The other great one is Babylon 5, which I've never seen either. I've been really watching the Max Landis stuff lately, and he's a monster apparently, but I really like his sense of fantasy somewhat. Anyway, I'm watching it. We are in the universe trying to understand itself. Yeah, but you don't need to understand yourself because you are everything. So all you got to do is sit back and be like, oh, you don't have to work to understand yourself. You just have to sit back and go, oh, yeah, I remember, yeah. Just let go of your ego sense of separation, which is a delusion, and then you know everything. Oh, yeah. It's not actually as easy. It doesn't take a second to lay back and be like, oh, it actually takes hours and hours and days and months and maybe years or lifetimes of disentangling yourself from the karmic makeup of an ego. But then you sit back and you go, oh. Hey, enjoy the 7-Eleven, Jorge Clara. Don't buy anything there because it's all garbage. Love you. Sorry. So judgy. That's all I wanted to say, was that I feel safe here and I really appreciate those kind of things while I'm here. Yeah. There's no need of having a fear of death anyway. It's totally insane to have a fear of death. Death is your friend. When you signed up for being alive, like, death was just, part of the whole package. How long are you in New York for? Eternity, bitch. Because I'm everywhere at the same time. I'm everything. I'm all men just as I am no man. I have existed from the dawn of eternity, and I will exist till the last star from the star falls from the night sky. I am all men just as I am no man, and therefore I am a god. From my brother Caligula, yo. Death is my friend. Ever been to Lake Minnewaska? I don't remember if I've been to Lake Minnewaska. I'll have to look it up. But I'm getting cold. I have sung the gospel of appreciation of the goodness of life. I have plugged my brother Owen Pallett, who I love. It's harder for me to plug Thom Yorke because he's such a nightmare, but they did put the song Hearing Damage up on Spotify recently, and Hearing Damage was like from a Twilight soundtrack or something, because his kids like Twilight, so he put it on. I've never seen any of the Twilight movies. But Hearing Damage is such a beautiful song. So if you've never heard Hearing Damage by Thom Yorke, it's kind of hearing, and it's kind of beautiful in a little bit of a chaotic, dark, gothy vampire kind of way, but it is so beautiful. And you can do no wrong in my eyes, and you can do no wrong in my eyes, but kind of like as the world's falling apart and you're suffering terribly. But it's beautiful, beautiful song. So that's recently on Spotify. It didn't used to be on Spotify. It's a place you will like. Search it later in New Paltz, where the Split Rock is. You haven't been there either. Hi, bird singing. That's you, Jorge. You're a bird singing right over there. I love you, Jorge, as a bird singing. I wish you felt better, I wish you felt better, but you don't feel any better. That's enough. That's enough for tonight. I'm totally shocked I talked this long and I'm cold. Go inside. I love you. I'm gonna bring this jacket in. I think I'm gonna call the owner of this house and tell him I love him, share my appreciation with him. I want you all to have a nice night, and I want you all to reflect on the goodness of your life and appreciate it. And you can do whatever you want because you're free. You were born, and so you're free. So happy birthday. That's Laurie Anderson, Born Never Asked. Check it out if you don't know it. It's really fun. Or you should put that in one of your playlists. It's so good. Love you. So yeah, that's enough. It's so hard to say goodbye. See you in the next life.